Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and we just completed the Ohio CNN New York Times debate 4. And just like we were expecting, Andrew Yang knocked it out of the park. And what we really witnessed tonight, I think, what tonight will go down in history is when Andrew Yang absolutely smashed through the Yang Media blackout wall, right? The media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they've been doing a much better job at building a wall than Trump has been doing, right? They have been trying so hard to make sure that absolutely no one hears Yang. And tonight he absolutely smashed through that wall like the Kool-Aid man smashed through the wall in those old commercials, man. It was awesome, right? It was just fantastic. I'm absolutely thrilled with his performance. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to talk about, so who won the debate? Yang. Andrew Yang won the debate. And the reason why it was all Yang all the time, man. So things happened in this debate that have never happened in any of the other debates. He was asked questions. He was not asked a single question on China. He was asked questions about UBI. Every single person on that stage got in on UBI. Cory Booker was like, we need to go back to UBI. It was UBI all over. And also, we saw a side of Andrew Yang that we have never seen before. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when I talk about Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang crushed it. He could not have done better, right? And while he really knocked it out of the park, one of the things that I'm really encouraged with is there's just an absolutely incremental increase in each debate, right? And you can see his momentum. And if we continue this momentum, we will have Andrew Yang sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th, 2021. We're going to get there. This is exactly what we need. Let's get into this. We got lots to talk about. I'm going to talk about every single candidate and I'm going to rank them against Yang, where they came against Yang, okay? So I'm going to talk about Yang first because he won, right? He is first, right? And then the person I talk about second, they are the person who came closest to Yang's performance. And the person I talk about last, they came farthest away from Andrew Yang's stellar, stratospheric performance tonight. He crushed it. All right. So let's get into this. First, I want to talk about some spanning issues. There were issues that went across every single candidate except Yang, right? Because they're all politicians. They're all crocodiles. They're all swamp creatures except Yang. He's the only human standing up there, right? There's actually, there's one other person who is not a politician, and that's Tom Steyer. And frankly, I think he's kind of a villain. We'll get to that. We'll get to him last because that's where he is. I got some words on Tom Steyer. Man, I am not a fan. Wow. All right, let's get into this. So here's the spanning issues. Rallying behind Biden. And everything I'm about to talk about looks really bad for Democrats overall. Rallying around Biden. This was horrendous. Sanders, Warren, O'Rourke, Klobuchar. They stated tonight, they closed ranks and said this establishment candidate has our protection and we will close ranks around him. And every single one of those candidates said this impeachment is completely 100% partisan. And while there might be some questions of whether there was corruption on the Democrat side of this whole impeachment thing, there's absolutely no question whatsoever that cronyism and nepotism are as live today as they ever have been. And we, the Democrats, as Democrat politicians, totally stand for cronyism and nepotism and old school, machine politics. It was bad. It was very, very bad. Just how quick and how hard Sanders, Warren, O'Rourke, Klobuchar all stood up for Biden. I was like, and if there was ever any hope of getting that impeachment done, they did more damage to it tonight than I can imagine, right? Because the only way you could approach this is objectively, and they're saying, hey, there's nothing to be objective about this. We're going to protect our people involved in this, and we're going to go hard at Trump in this. And it's exactly what Trump, they're walking into Trump's trap, right? So here's another huge one, across every candidate but Yang. Problem called out by the moderator, and then candidates come in saying facts, saying the problem is a problem. It's worse than you thought it was. It's like Harris, Booker, Warren, Sanders, all of it. Wasted all this time telling you that a problem that the moderators had already said was a problem was a problem. It's just, And it's a huge problem because there are people who want to engage in politics and they can't because there's so much time. Politicians are so dedicated to wasting people's time with things that are just noise. There's so little signal from these politicians, and it's killing us because people are trying to engage and then they hit static and they jet out, right? And it's frustrating to me. All right, the Kurds response. This was bad. The Kurds question, it looks incredibly partisan because at the Democrat level, everybody but Yang, they're all saying Trump pulled out troops that we didn't even want there, but now we're going to castigate Trump for what looks kind of like a non-interventionist move, which generally Democrats are for. It looks completely disingenuous on the part of the Democrats. Next one is the majority of Americans X. Whenever you hear this, all you're hearing these candidates say is, I found a poll that I like the numbers of. It's meaningless. It's a major problem. Every time you hear that term, you should hear it. You should be like a rabbit hearing a wolf keen, right? It is a problem, right? All right, okay. Let's talk about CNN. 3 yays and a boo, right? No audience interruptions. We've had audience interruptions in every single one of these. CNN kept it down. I'll give them the points, man. The establishment, CNN asked questions that deeply cut at establishment candidates. It's a fact, okay? Here's okay, now. No opening statement. You think I'm going to say that's a boo. It's not. It's a yay, okay? CNN did it to silence Yang, without a doubt, right? So why am I saying it's a yay? Because it's a clanging gong saying Andrew Yang freaking crushed it with his opening statement, embarrassed Buttigieg, who had to wait for his applause to go down, and there was absolutely conversations with high-level people saying Yang cannot have another opening speech because he could lock the presidency if we let that dude talk again the way and crush it the way he did before, right? Nobody else would be even here in the rest of the debate. They had to shut him down, and I think it's an omission that he just crushed it in debate number 3. So actually it's a yay. Boo, time waster. The healthcare question, there was nothing new there. It was a waste of like 20 minutes. They got to stop asking that. Nobody cares about minute differences between Medicare for all, between this candidate and candidate. It's a time waster. It's pushing Americans away from politics, and I think it might even be on purpose. All right, so let's get into all these candidates. I'm going to be talking about power lines and sour lines. Power lines are things they said that were awesome. Sour lines are things they said that were not awesome, okay? I'm also going to be calling out where other candidates said very pro-Yang things, either intentionally or unintentionally. All right, now, Yang, all power lines, no sour lines. There you go. All right, so let's talk about Yang. He crushed it tonight. We saw a very aggressive demeanor that we haven't seen in anything since, okay? He did 3 political maneuvers. Now, I just did a video the other day saying that he shouldn't have done any of these things, right? So he went completely against what I said he should do. I trust him. He's got to have room to move. He's got to have room to do what he needs to do. I'm still thrilled with everything he did. But he did 3 political maneuvers tonight. He interjected, he pivoted, and he went long. Like, he did everything that I hate to see every other crocodile do, right? Now, that's not Andrew Yang ain't a crocodile, right? He ain't marinated in that juice like the rest of them. But these were political maneuvers, right? And it was shocking. It was shocking to see. All right. So let's talk about some of the cool things. There was a whole question on automation. He had a hard clapback on Warren. It was awesome. The tech breakup, right? He interjected on the tech breakup question, but he didn't interrupt. Actually, he interjected. There's a difference, and he hit his points. He hit his automation points, which he does on the road. Impeachment. He did a stealth ride along. He's like, yeah, I agree with all you people. He don't really care about it. But he actually snuck in there. Impeachment ain't going to be successful. It was interesting. By the way, he pivoted on the impeachment question. It's the first time I think Andrew Yang's ever pivoted in any of the debates. All right, the jobs programs. He said, oh man, he crushed it against Sanders on the job program. He called out all the problems. He said most Americans do not want to work for U.S. government. For the U.S. government. Great point, right? And then he called out how his program will help stay-at-home moms. And he also talked about failed retraining and jobs no one wants. He really came hard at Sanders. Wealth tax. He's like, we should not, right at Warren, we should not look to other countries' mistakes, which have failed in a half a dozen European countries. It was awesome. On the Putin question, he called, she said that Trump's foreign international policy is erratic, and that, and essentially that we, the U.S., have tampered with other elections. Bold, costly truth-telling, right? Andrew Yang has courage, and you could see it tonight, right? And he said and also he says if the U.S. continues to try to tamper in our elections, we will see it as an attack. He talked about if they tried to do anything with AI, loose nuclear materials, and then he called out that we're decades behind on the curve on technology. And Klobuchar, Klobuchar came right back at Yang and said there's no equivalence between the U.S. and Russia. This is important because there were lots and lots and lots of people who are coming right back at Yang tonight because they had to. He talked plenty. He said things that upset the others because they realized he's overtaking them and they needed to deal with it. He talked about the opioid crisis and talked about his stance on legalizing these and treating people like treat people. And he said if people have this problem, they're not going to be referred to jail, but they're going to be referred to treatment. And it's not a personal failing. It really showed his human heart and his care for people and his humanity first. He talked about the tech breakup. He said that Warren was right on diagnosing the problem, and then he called out 15 ways she got the solution wrong. And he said 21st century solutions for 21st century problems, and then clearly called out how Warren's tech breakup idea was a 19th century monopoly solution for a 20th century problem. He crushed it. He also talked about screen use and how it affects children, which I think goes right to parents. It was awesome. He did a point on he showed his hustle by saying he'll be doing 10 straight hours of answering questions. Oh, and this is one of my favorite things. I love this. He hit the mic 3 times in the debate, right? Bonk, bonk, bonk. And each time it was just the ringing gong of I hit this mic accidentally 3 times because I don't live in the swamp. And every time, every single one of those other politicians effortlessly avoided the mic, they were just saying, look at my crocodile fangs. Look at my green scaly skin. I am a crocodile. I was born into this power. I'll never let it go. I'll protect my cronyism, fellows. And every time he hit that mic, I was so happy to see it because he kept hitting the mic because he spent his time doing actual labor, doing benevolence, getting 2 Ivy League degrees, right? He is not a crocodile. I was so happy to see it. It was beautiful. It was a thing. It was a work of art. All right. Gabbard was the person who came closest to his performance. She did very well. She said automation. She called out that there's the heart of fear, right? That automation brings these fears at us. Totally pointing to everything Yang's saying. And then she said, my friend Andrew Yang. Now, she did lose some points. She had some sour lines. Kurds, she said the slaughter of the Kurds being done by Turkey. Trump has blood on his hand, has blood of the Kurds on his hands. But here's the issue, right? He pulled them out. That's a non-interventionist move, right? Like, you're getting upset with somebody for pulling troops out of a nation. It's really weird. And I really feel like the Democrats, because of their stance on non-interventionism, how are you going to get mad at Trump if you pull troops out? Like, it doesn't, it rings false. It rings like they're being disingenuous and they're just attacking Trump because he's Trump. The same way the Republicans attacked Obama just because he was Obama, right? There was she had a great response. So Tulsi Gabbard, it was nice to see her back. I enjoyed that. She answered the Ellen surprise friendship question with saying, I don't see deplorables, saying, stay out, Hillary Clinton. Do not you dare come back because I will eat you alive. I love that. So Tulsi Gabbard handled a problem we all needed handled, right? Klobuchar, she was came second. She had 3 power lines. She said, when my parents got divorced. My parents never got divorced. I've been married 28 years. I've never been divorced. Divorce is really, I never see it as a positive thing, and I think most people don't see it. I thought it was really genuine, and it was just kind of a human moment. I was impressed she said it. Okay, she said on the Kurds, she said the president blew it, and she said she would come back to Turkey as an ally, and she also said that she think how Israel feels, and I'm a huge ally of Israel, and I really often worry about being on the Democrat side because Israel would be abandoned. I have fears of that. And Klobuchar was like, hey, there are Democrats who think very carefully about Israel and do understand our allyship with them. And that really reassured me. And she also said that we shouldn't be giving power to China and Russia. I really liked it. She also had an anti-NRA line and said that she would do voluntary buybacks because we're so close, which I thought that's very reasonable, right? It seemed like a good answer. Booker, moment of the night. He's like, I need to go back to UBI. I don't care what nonsense question you just asked. We all need to talk about Andrew Yang again. Thank you very much, Cory Booker. He said he had a power line. Women's health, he said, not just women need to be taking up this cause. That was really interesting because a lot of people are saying, hey, when it comes to women's health, only women should be speaking. And Cory Booker kind of threw back at that. Kind of interesting. Cory Booker has really been consistent in pointing out that Democrats should not be attacking Democrats. He had a very bad moment. All the rest of these are sour lines. He had an anti-NRA question that came to him, Cory Booker. He had a 5-second delay, and it looked terrible. It looked like he didn't know what to say, and it really pointed out, like, when you're standing on that stage, even a 5-second delay can look horrible. And it just showed that he's among the smartest people in the world, and for that one moment, he wasn't standing right next to them. I think he's a really smart guy. I like him a lot, but I was stunned. Like, even a 5-second delay can make you look very bad. He pointed out twice that he's a vegan. Are you trying to win here? Like, impeachment. He said, we need to do impeachment in a way that brings us together. And then all of the Democrats were like, Joe Biden's our best buddy and cronyism is awesome. Right? And I was like, oh my gosh, geez, man. It was like, and then his Kurds line, again, a sour line. We need to be partnering with Merkel and Macron, not Putin. I was like, Macron? He's got some harsh words for the U.S., dude. You been paying attention? All right, so O'Rourke. Believe it or not, this is crazy. O'Rourke is listed above all these other people. He said, opioids. He said, for many of the same reasons Yang just said. Pointing back to Yang. All these politicians were pointing back to Yang, going against Yang, echoing Yang, copying Yang. It was Yang. It was Yang. Like, because he cannot be ignored. And that's what debate 4 was Andrew Yang smashing through that Yang Media Blackout wall. It's fantastic. I love it. All right. So, and then O'Rourke went into GM brings back jobs. These are all sour lines. Talked about Union Strong, 5 million apprentices. Sounded very 19th century. And then on the Putin question, he said, not on the backs of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. I felt like he was really calling out that we shouldn't have young soldiers, which I'm like, hey, that's an opportunity. There are people who come right out of high school and go in. I don't think he should have been calling out, like, an 18-year-old soldier is just as good as a 38-year-old soldier or a 28-year-old soldier. I didn't see any reason to throw shade at them. Anti-NRA, he dodged the question on how he would take back NRA devices. He dodged it hard. And then he got into a brutal scrap with Buttigieg and said that what Buttigieg had said was a slap in the face to those groups who suffered. It was a vicious fight. All right, next was Warren. And again, we're getting farther. All these are getting farther and farther away from Yang. Each one of these was worse than, each one I say is worse than the last. Warren had a couple power lines. Accountable capitalism, loved it. Anti-NRA, agreed with Klobuchar in a very civil way. Automation, she had to defend her earlier hits against Yang, which I loved. It was just so nice to say, to see CNN saying, hey, you said some harsh words about Andrew Yang. We're acknowledging he exists. Now you got to defend what you said about him earlier. Woo! It was great. All right, and then she said, on income equality, she says, I'll add $200 to the people who are already getting benefits. What about the people who aren't getting benefits? Andrew Yang helps everybody. And so Warren very inadvertently, in 2 different ways, really helped Yang. I love this line. These are all sour lines for Warren. Income equality. I don't have a beef with billionaires. You worked for that money, and that's good for you. Wait, what? Like, it just, like, it rang so hollow. Like, it was just really bad. Candidate's health. CNN pointed out that she will be the oldest president to be inaugurated in her first term. And she said that she would outwork and outlast anyone. How are you going to outwork and outlast a 30-year-old veteran, right? You're going to outwork and outlast Pete Buttigieg? You're calling him lazy? Like, it was a ridiculous statement, and it sounded ridiculous. Warren actually, she lost some ground tonight. I really think she did. She's still way above everybody else I'm going to talk about, which is worrisome. She's still a threat, but I think she lost ground tonight. On the tech breakup, she sounded terrible. She said, no money from Big Pharma, no money from Big Energy. And then everybody was like, Big Entertainment? Crickets, right? So that's her problem with how hard she rolls on wealth tax. One, trust and believe she's going to be going very non-grassroots as soon as we get to the general election, which means everything she's saying right now is ridiculous. And then also, she's incredibly selective about big X, right? These ones are bad, but these big, what about big agriculture? Oh, no, crickets, nothing, right? It sounds really ridiculous. There was a question on Warren and Sanders attract Trump voters. This is great. This question, everybody pivoted on it. So the question was, won't Warren and Sanders, how on earth would Warren and Sanders' tactics attract Trump voters? Nobody could answer it. She denied that Biden got, and then she actually denied that Biden helped get her votes and did a really deep cut against Biden on Obama, right? But the reality is this Warren and Sanders attracting Trump voters, it was incredibly clear. Every single person pivoted and would not answer the question and then use the time to talk about other things. And the reason why is Warren and Sanders couldn't get one Trump voter between the two of them, right? They couldn't get a Trump voter if they showed up with a nice fruit basket and a bag of money. Like, neither one of them could, and it's super clear. All right, next was Kamala Harris. She had one power line. She talked about a dad doing a budget at a table on the income equality question. And I thought it was nice that she talked about dads. I'm a dad, right? And I honestly don't really feel like a lot of people talk about dads in any of this mix at all, almost ever. And so it was really surprising to hear Kamala Harris pull it out. It was interesting. All the rest were sour lines. She said Kurds. She said that 10,000 ISIS fighters get a free out of jail free card, right? And I'm kind of like, so you're saying you would roll harder against ISIS than Trump did? Like, but that doesn't match with, like, you're saying that you're gonna, put less money into it's confusing. Like, the Democrats just have no consistent speech on the Kurds. Like, it sounded like a mess. I think it is a mess. I think they're being very disingenuous, and I don't think American people are even understanding what's being said. It's not good. For the opioids, she said she would send the big pharma execs to jail and called them high-level drug dealers, reminding everybody in the nation that she has spent her life jailing people, right? And which I was like, what the heck? Like, are you trying to get elected? Right? I think this definitely set her back. Then on the tech breakup, she called to Warren and says, you need to help me suspend Donald Trump's Twitter account. You need to agree with me and tell Twitter to get rid of Donald Trump's Twitter account. And this was so pro-Yang. It was unintentionally pro-Yang. It was exactly what he was saying. Nobody on that stage understands technology. The fact that Trump is tweeting is not the problem. The problem is what he is tweeting. The ability for the president to go right to Americans and say what he needs to immediately, right? Can you imagine how beneficial Twitter will be with a great president like Yang? It will be amazing and awesome and a beautiful thing. And Kamala Harris 100% proved Andrew Yang's point that nobody on that stage understands tech except for her, diagnoses the problem correct, gets the solution wrong, just like Yang said, right? Let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. So he said he had a really good answer. He had the strongest answer on the Kurds. He said the withdrawal is a betrayal. What we're doing in Syria is keeping our word, and we're going to go is keeping our word, which I was like, wow, that's really a bold statement. And then he said, what are they going to do? Come after their body armor next? And he also called out Hong Kong, which means there's a possibility somebody in the Democrat Party understands that we should be the Lafayette to Hong Kong, and we need to be starting to help those people. And so, and there was the disappearance of the U.S. as a world, and he also talked about the disappearance of the U.S. as a world leader. I swear, I don't know what was going on. This was a power line, because when I was listening to Pete Buttigieg, it sure as heck sounded like I was listening to Ronald Reagan. Holy crap, that was like super conservative, right? On anti-NRA, oh my gosh, did he take it to O'Rourke. He was like, I don't need lessons from you on courage. I was like, wow. So Pete Buttigieg and O'Rourke fought hard on the anti-NRA question. And again, that's a sour line in my opinion. It was just sounded like them fighting. He said something really weird and frightening on impeachment. Pete Buttigieg said, when Donald Trump's out, this particular brand of corruption will be over. I'm like, why did you couch it that way? Like, there's going to be a new brand of corruption? Like, it was... And then I was like, well, no, he could have meant that. But then I was like, wait, it did seem like every Democrat on the stage except Yang was saying that cronyism would be very, very strongly protected. And that even while going after the president for impeachment, they would make sure that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's cronyism would be very carefully protected. Right? Like, okay. I was like, yeah, okay, interesting. All right. Like, boy. So, the other one is definitely a sour line. On income and quality, Pete Buttigieg said that he drove a Chevy Cruze, which I was like, wow, like, you're telling people you're less cool than they thought you were, which you were already way down on that point. I was like, wow. Then on court packing, he says, yes, I will pack the courts, but it's not political. What a ridiculous statement. And then he actually talked about the Warren and Sanders attracting Trump voters, and again, did a massive pivot and used the time for other things, because everybody knows Warren and Sanders could not get a single Trump voter, which means that they will both shockingly lose to Trump. And Buttigieg fully confirmed that tonight, right? Sanders, oh my gosh, Sanders, let's get into it. Sanders said this last week that he was dumb not to listen to his body. Tonight, we were dumb to be listening, not be listening to his body either. So last week, Bernie Sanders said, I was dumb not to listen to my body. Now the question is, are the American people going to listen to Bernie Sanders' body? Because it's clear Bernie won't, right? So basically, Bernie was like, there was talk about people releasing their health records. Nobody needs Bernie's health records released, right? Like, what would we possibly find? And it made the whole releasing the health records thing completely useless. There's a candidate who had a heart attack during the presidential run, right? Like, what purpose would... So what it showed was that releasing the health records will mean jack all of nothing. Ridiculous, right? Sanders did have a good line on he had a power line on the Kurds. He said, Turkey is not a U.S. ally, right? And I thought it was, I thought that was a pretty, I didn't particularly like him saying that, but I thought it was bold and it was honest. And it's one thing I like about Bernie is he is bold and he is honest. He talked about his jobs program. This is sour. All the rest of these are sour lines. His jobs program, he talked about sheet metal workers and he talked about bringing sheet metal worker jobs back, and he just sounded like Trump. It just sounded like hollow promises. It was so bad, and it was just another drumbeat of 19th century solutions for 21st century problems. Oh my gosh, Andrew Yang's crushed it, right? Like, also there was a question about